convening this Parliamentary Oversight Committee. I will immediately go over or give over to the Department of Infrastructure that will present to us the fire rationale and compliance report. You may proceed. Who will be presenting?
Mr. Munari.
Monari.
Just mute my web. Network. 1 2 1 2. Members of the Parliament, Speaker, guests, everyone that is here, I greet you all. This is going to be a quick presentation on our latest investigation report with regarding to fire compliance of 7 and 15 Wells Street and 4 Dove Street. Okay, quickly, I'm gonna go through a couple of slides. Firstly, explaining what is fire rationale design. Fire rationale design is a detailed design of fire safety and prevention mechanism and strategies in a building in order to comply with the national building regulations. Right, what is the importance of fire design? Building can sustain severe damages from fire, which can occasionally even result into loss of life. I think we all have seen this issue that had happened in Johannesburg that resulted people who lost their lives because there were no system in place, no strategies in place to prevent fire. That is why it is crucial to have effective fire protection systems in place. These systems are designed to detect and suppress fire before it gets out of control. Additionally, they give residents advance notice so that they can safely exit the building on time. So the basic function of the fire systems is to first detect, notify, and evacuate the occupants of the building safely. Okay, there are 5 fundamentals of fire safety principles for preventing fire and managing their impact. 1 is prevention, identifying potential hazards, detection and communication. Detection is your fire detection systems. Communication is your public address system, and you have your fire phones. And sometimes if you have fire marshals on the floors, you can use your talking radios to be able to communicate. The PA system is able to notify the users to all the floors in the building.
My apologies, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Can someone from the administration just check we are unable to follow the presentation. Oh, there we go. Thank you. You may proceed. Thank you.
Okay. The detection system is there to detect the fire at a very early stage. And then the communication systems are there to notify the users of the risk that has been detected by fire detection system. And then you've got the PA, which is a public address system, to communicate the entire building or to communicate to the specific floor that where the fire or the risk is identified. Then you've got fire phones to strategic places, including your emergency staircases, where in our buildings, we have people sometimes with disability challenges, which are those people supposed to be in a safe space in the case of emergency? Where are they able to communicate with the control room, ask for assistance? Occupant protection, containment, and extinguishing. All right. I think I have explained the detection and communication systems. And then the second part is containment systems. Containment systems means you must have the fire doors that are able to prevent the fire to spread. Number two, you have firewalls that also preventing the fire to spread. You have extraction systems preventing or allowing the people to use your escape routes, preventing the smoke going into those areas. Then you have the shutting off of fresh air supply and to, let's say, to the office spaces. Immediately, you're supposed to prevent oxygen to increase the fire from spreading. Then you've got extinguishing systems. Extinguishing systems, once, let's say, the fire detects the fire early, you have a quick, short period of time to investigate and be able to kill the fire with a fire extinguisher while it's still controllable. Then if it goes beyond your fire extinguishers, you've got your fire hose rails, which you can utilize. Then if it goes beyond the fire hose rails, it goes to a point whereby you've got your fire brigade, then you've got your fire hydrants to be able to kill the fire or to extinguish the fire. Now, I think I've gone through how the systems works, the fire systems works, and how the emergency systems works. I'm gonna go briefly onto the report which we have done with regards to fire compliance in this building and the building next door, which is 4 Dobb Street. When you deal with the fire compliance, there's 3 components that you deal with, right? You've got building compliance, as I have mentioned. Then you've got your fire escape routes. Then you've got systems, right? So at the time when we did the fire compliance investigation, we, based on the scope that was identified, we found that for us to go on or full on implementing the recommendation of that report, it will need us to shut down the building. So we had to come up with the interim solution and the long-term solution to attend to the fire compliance issues. Maybe let me explain. There's 2 types of compliance. There is one, there is installation compliance, and then there is operations compliance. So based on the fact that the cost to go on to a full-on implementation of the recommendation of that report were quite high, and were unable or won't be able to implement them straight away. Then we came with 2 proposals to attend to the fire compliance issues. We had to look at the operational compliance of the system that we already have, all right? That is to ensure that the system are fully operational, they are able to detect fire, notify the occupants, and they are able to evacuate, contain the fire, and be able to extinguish the fire. So that is our first phase of attending to the fire compliance issues in the building. I will go now to the next phase, which is our phase 2 briefly. Bottom to that, there is other building works which we are currently doing, which is the scanning of all services in the building. And then second one is the shaft and drainage project, which we are busy upgrading all the sewage systems in the building. We are currently, I think, about 80% at 4 Dove Street. The challenges which we have at this point in time now to move to 7 and 15 Wells Street is the access permits to our service providers. We have a lot of delays in that process, in getting that process to allow us to be able to proceed to 7 and 15 Wells Street. Phase 2. Phase 2 of our project is anticipated that is going to be 5 phases. Phase 1 or work package number 1 will be fire and electrical, fire and life safety. Phase 2 will be electrical. Phase 3 will be HVAC and water supply. And then phase 4 will be structural. And then phase 5 will be monitoring, which is your building management system, which is your BMS systems. And then these are the timeframes on the next slide. These are the timeframes for our phase 2 fire compliance and upgrade of services. It already started. The teams were briefed on the 15th of May. They was supposed to start with the or started with the investigation stage, starting from the 19th of June. Today, they're supposed to be submitting stage 1 report. And then submission of stage 2 report is expected on the 29th of November. And then report feedback from us after we have scrutinized the document or stage 2 report is on the 11th of December. And then the presentation, 18th of December. Obviously, with the approval of stage 2, then they will move to stage 3. And then feedback of stage 3 is anticipated to be 1st of July 2024. And then approval of stage 3 will be 24th of July. We anticipate stage 4 to stage 6 then to be finalized or to have a clear dates of what will be the milestones there once we have agreed on the overall scope of that fire compliance project. Okay, I think if there are any questions.
Thank you very much. I see the hand of Member Maseko. Member Bosman, was your hand up? No?
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to find out just on this slide. So for fire compliance and upgrade of services program, of which I believe it's one of the very urgent things that needs to be attended to. With this information, you mean the start date was the 15th of May 2023. And then the report submission from May, it's the November. And then where does it talk about? Because it's a feedback, consolidation, presentation, report, feedback, consolidation, and then the tender document, construction, closeout. Do you mean from 1523 May and the date that is not indicated of 2024 is then that the tender will come out for something to happen about the fire compliance, or what does it mean? Because it's generic information. If you can have the specifics, it will be more appreciated. If you can share that with us. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, through you, Chair. No, I think this is following our ProCap stages in terms of construction. So what is represented as stage one is your inception and viability. Stage two would be your concept. And stage three, you go through your detailed designs. So in each and every one of these gaps or gates, it needs to be presented to a full-on team at Public Works, and after approvals, then the team goes back to make any corrections or take into consideration any inputs that have come through those meetings. But at this stage, this is how, yes, the different stages. Stage 4 is now where you do your procurement stages to move to stage 5, which is construction, stage 6, which is now where you've completed the work and close out. Those are the dates we don't have right now, Member Maseko. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Maseko.
Just to follow up, what I want to find out is you are saying for fire compliance, you are still on the stages, implementation date of the fire hazards that might be in the building and the compliance. You still have to, that is why I was saying, this is like a generic statement of this needs to happen, but implementation of the agency from the Department of Infrastructure when coming to fire compliance. You say you don't have a date, or you do have the date, and if that's the case, when?
Thank you, Member.
You, Chair. Yes, Members Maseko, I think you must understand we also have phase 1. Phase 1 is what is currently on the ground, where we've identified the current the shortcomings of the existing system through our appointed service provider, TNT Fire. They are appointed. We've given them the instruction in terms of the scope of works to proceed with that work. So that is what is currently happening in terms of ensuring that the system is fully functional. Phase 2 has also started in terms of the initial stages, and that is what is shown on that slide. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other member? Member, you happy? It seems like you have a follow-up. You can proceed.
Chair, I'm not happy if I have to ask to respond to that. I'm not happy because I tend to believe that in planning, and I'm talking from the side of now the chair of infrastructure. In planning, there need to be the short-term plannings that it's urgent you have to implement immediately. And there are other things that are long-term that have to be, you know, the plan and. But if you are in the building and we have to take responsibility during the oversight as POC to say to each and every person that is in the building, we took responsibility of an oversight and we tell them that, no, we are on the planning session stage number 2. We still compile the report. Implementation of how safe you are against the fire, it will be activated 2024. Doesn't make sense to me.
A response from you, or you take it as a comment?
Yes, Chair, just to emphasize, the current phase 1, Member Maseko, is being implemented. For a building of this size, you may not, in terms of regulations, not have a servicing of your fire systems. So that is ongoing, and it's something that we've identified the shortcomings of the existing system. However, phase 2 is looking at the upgrades and future compliance of the building. So the assurance that we're providing is that the building, as things stands, we are looking after the fire compliance of the building with our current service provider, but the future upgrades that will come are the ones that are indicated on phase 2.
Member?
So if I have to say to the Department of Infrastructure, if you have to declare the safety when coming to the fire compliance, you declare it safe. When will that be? Do you have a clue of 2024, which month, or because you cannot give that? If we have to have the certificate from the speaker, won't give it to us now. But by when will you give that to the WCPP to say now it's clear, the certificate is here, the compliance, everything has ticked the box, you can declare this building safe to us? When will that be?
Through you, Chair, that's a very difficult question to respond to, Member Maseko, on the basis that it's various elements that needs to be compliant. We've received now in August an inspection from the department, and the findings was the cabling in our risers. That's the only thing that they detected, is the non-compliance of IT cables and telephone cables that are running through the risers. In as far as the equipment, there were no shortcomings detected. But again, as we've indicated in the walkabout, there are various issues that we are detecting on the system in terms of the smoke detectors, identification of those detectors in terms of their zones. So it's, because that's always something that Mr. Dowman requires, is the sign-off letter from the fire chief. It's difficult to say, but yes, at various intervals, we invite them to do an inspection to identify what are the major shortcomings.
Satisfied, ma'am? Thank you, Member Maseko. Any other questions, colleagues? Responding, Secretary? Speaker?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to Honorable Maseko and Mr. Munari for the responses. Honorable Maseko, I see from the timelines that the Department of Infrastructure has provided in this presentation that there's currently a maintenance phase in terms of the existing, and they are currently in the planning phase of the upgrades. The implementation phase of the upgrades, so after all of the planning has been done, the options have been considered, comes in, and Mr. Munari can correct me, at stage 4 to 6 of phase 2, but that only refers to the upgrades. The existing processes of maintenance of the building in the areas and periodic assessments on the current measures that are in place will continue while the upgrades are being planned, implemented, and concluded. Thank you, Chairperson.
Speaker?
Thanks, Chair. I see the timelines, and I understand maintenance and I think, without speaking on behalf of Member Maseko, but I think the assurance that we want, or I assure want, is that at this stage there's enough, or that at this stage that the systems in place will protect the building and the members and the staff of this institution. I think we have an obligation to get that on record. So I want infrastructure to give us the assurance that although these maintenance and compliance and upgrades are happening at this stage, we are covered. I think that's where Member Maseko was going. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Speaker. Member Maseko?
Thank you. I think that's what I'm trying to find out. I understand the upgrade. I understand the equipment for fire compliance is already there. but you have a report. That means when you did an assessment, there is a need for something. That is why there's a need for an upgrade. So the question was that now, if that is the case, because we don't have that report in front of us, when will be the assurance, looking at the dates that are in front of us? Because if you have, to an extent of you are going to have a tender document, how big is the work? How much upgrading do you need in this building? That is why the assurance to us that much as we are going to do the upgrading, but for now you are safe because of 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what we need from you. Because if we are in here, everybody listening in the building, they would need to know that we are safe for now, but we want to level up for your safety, or because you downgraded on 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the information that we needed, that assurance that for now we, although I cannot say totally after we did the walkabout, but from you, the date of assurance of say by when, that was on those upgrading, that was important. But also for now, we are safe, and you need to sort of support the segment of the safety if you give us the assurance now. Thank you, Chair.
Department.
I think on my slide, I'm not sure, is it number 7, where I was explaining phase 1 scope of works, which is to ensure, yes, is to ensure that the systems in this building are fully operational, are able to detect, are able to evacuate the occupants of the building, are able to extinguish the fire. So that confirms that you are safe.
Thank you very much. You want to add to that, sir?
Yeah, just to add, I think what we can commit to is through our monthly coordination meetings with Mr. Doman. Once the intervention have been done, we will do a test and then provide the report. Will that be acceptable?
Member Maseko?
Chair, I really don't want us to go on and on about it, because that is the presentation. The reality is what we listened to also from the police when they were talking about fire detection and all that. Now we are saying, by when will those things that have been identified now be dealt with for us to have the assurance? Understand the scope of what does it entail and blah, 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 blah. Practicality of it now that we have identified when we did the walkabout, there are things that needs an urgent attention. And that those are the things that I'm saying. Can you give us assurance that the Department of Infrastructure will attend to them, and by when, so that when I look at the secretary and the speaker, they can say, okay, we received an assurance through Mr. Doman. Those things that the police also have identified by the end of the month that will be dealt with. That's all that we want to hear from the Department of Infrastructure when coming to the safety of the employees and now the members within this building. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Maseko. And I think as a committee, we can perhaps just also take resolutions in terms of those periods in between and dissect and ask the questions as to what is happening in between. Because as I look at phase 1, that is general compliance. And it becomes confusing when you say this is a phase of what? That is supposed to be in place. But as the member said during our walkabout, there are certain matters that were raised that are not in place. So one would want to see that those were raised. Yes, they are recorded as such, and they are being attended to by when they will be attended to. Because also the indication that I got is that some of these matters has been long outstanding. And I don't think any one of us occupying this building are aware that there are certain risks. So that in itself is a major concern. But as I said, we will have to deal with that in terms of our resolutions and recommendations as the committee. Secretary, I see you.
Chairperson, I think I was partly covered, and it's not wanting to speak for the members, but I just thought to provide some clarity. On your second point, Chairperson, from outside the administration, we will also record in writing the matters that were raised during the walkabout, and that will then be managed through the normal processes. So that at least from outside, the WCPP had then formally also put on record what were the matters that were raised, and the procedural officer will assist us with that, so that we can then do follow-up against something where there's concrete interventions that would be required. So maybe just my last comment slash question, and this is so that we are all clarified. For the occupancy of a building, there are certain minimum standards. Okay, I think, and this is what I thought Member Maseko had asked. Do we currently meet those minimum standards, and will the upgrade then enhance the standards so that we are no longer at the minimum standards level? Because that is what I surmised was the question from Honourable Maseko.
Through you, Chair, that is why initially I talked about the short-term issues that have to be dealt with, that will get the list and then can go. The long-term is the one that you talk about, that we need to separate them so that we can be able to look at the way forward and checking all the time the progress as that get to be done. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Maseko. Are there any, Mr. Dolman?
To you, Chair. Chair, I think 2 years ago, there was a full HIRA assessment. HIRA stands for Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment of all the buildings in the Western Cape, including 7 and 15. So DOI is in possession of that HIRA assessment, and it speaks to all of the fire issues as well. I think in that assessment, overall, this building scored 69%, which was the second or third highest in the Western Cape. So DOI is aware of the other 30% that they need to attend to, apart from some of the issues that was raised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that indulgence, Mr. Dolman. I don't see any further hands from the members based on this presentation. Are there any closing remarks from the department? Any closing remarks?
No, thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much for presenting to us this morning. Colleagues, we move along on Member Bosman.
Sorry, just before we close, I'm not sure whether this falls under fire safety, but just something that just came to me from our walkabout last year. We just wanted to check. So last year, there was no defibrillator, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, available at the WCPP. And I wanted to ask whether that has been added. Is that part of fire safety, or is that something else?
Thank you, Member. Secretary.
Chairperson, I'm going to ask Mr. Dolman just to assist with the response. My understanding that the defibrillator is a medical device that is operated by somebody who is competent to operate the defibrillator. It attends to matters from my previous life. It attends to matters of a medical emergency that could or would occur on a specific premises. But with regards to the specific question, I'm just going to ask Mr. Dolman as part of our OHS processes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Dolman.
Through you, Chair, thank you. Yes, we've got the equipment is housed in the medical room. Now, only on parliamentary sittings days do we request a nurse or somebody from ambulance services to be here, and they are the only people that operate equipment in that specific room. But with that specific item, I will just have to come back because there is an inventory list, and then provide that to the committee. Can I say more?
Member Maseko.
I think just the last one, Chair, I just remembered about the the fire marshals, when do they get the training? And maybe how many do we have in the building as we speak now? Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair. Firstly, there's a group of a team that supports the occupational health and safety team. So on each floor, you would, what the Act requires a minimum of 2 occupational health and safety reps, 1 for every 50 employees in the office environment, which we have. We've got 3 appointed health and safety reps, and they are then supported by floor and fire marshals and first aiders. We have trained 9 first aiders that is fully compliant now and been issued with first aid level 1 certificates. The floor marshals that we also have appointed floor marshals on all our floors in writing, and have accepted that. It is just maybe the names. What we've done, I think there was a legislator article where we introduced last year all the newly appointed floor marshals and fire marshals. Maybe we just need to recirculate that to members so that the members know exactly who is the floor and fire marshals in the building. There was also a training session last year before the evacuation exercise where Colonel de Klerk of SAPS did a physical evacuation exercise in the chamber with our floor marshals, including the officials from Treasury and .P, and we did a mock exercise last year in the chamber itself, member.
Thank you, Mr. Doman. Can I perhaps just ask this floor and fire marshals, how regularly do they receive training? And also we heard that something as simple as a toaster can cause havoc in this building. Why is it so difficult to contain something as simple as that?
Yes, it speaks to household issues. I'm not exempting us, but both incidents was on the 2nd and the 3rd floor, and we've got the Integrated Safety and Security Forum where we speak to the other occupational health and safety reps in this building about their household. A lot of incidents that happen in this building we've picked up over the years happens on the 3rd floor, but that doesn't exempt us. We work together as a team. And then pertaining to the training for floor and fire marshals, I think that it has been placed on the workplace skills plan for the floor marshals just to get additional training. But the team that we have in place is a team that has the necessary experience, and some of them are also assist in the chamber, mostly our service officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doman. Member Maseko?
Thank you very much. I just want to find out, since we're still not back to the normal of having the staff in the building. So do the presence of the health and safety or the fire marshals talk to the need per day that you make sure that there is at least every floor a fire marshal, and then how do you do that because of the each and every person has their own roster of working from home and all that. And then number 2, I think maybe to the infrastructure. The cameras are not working at the front. I remember Member Makamba Butcher was attacked at the front there before going to the parking. And the cameras are not working then, like we heard from SAPS that it's been quite some time. And the reason that the door that we used to use, we got a report that it's for safety reasons. That is why we cannot use that door. Now, those are one of the things that I say that it's urgent that has to be attended to. Now, when coming to the scenarios like that, to balance the safety and also what you call the safety, or as this the national key point, how do you go about to make sure that also the safety of the members or the safety of each and every person that get to their basement is being considered? Because you get the homeless people now, they're sleeping at the front there it's really not an area that is safe, but your safety of the building take precedence to the safety of the users, which are the members and the officials that are getting on the parking. How do we get that balance to make sure that one is not shortchanged?
Thank you very much, Member Maseko, and thank you for raising the latter concern as well. I was going to raise that one again, since we do not have clarity with regards, as I said, some members work very late at night, and that risk poses them moving out of the building, and also even something as coming to work and someone had to come into the garage and you can be omgery word, driven over by someone. So that is a concern that has been raised quite a few times by the members. I'm going to afford Mr. Doman to respond, and also saw Mr. Titus's hand, and then I will give the speaker an opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the availability of floor marshals at the legislature, during the COVID-19 period, all different directorates had to submit weekly return to work plans to the Sergeant at Arms every Friday at 12. In terms of that plans, then we did schedule that we have the relevant OHS reps here on a daily basis. So from the Occupational Health and Safety Committee team already, we did identify that on each and every day that a OHS rep is available for any emergency. So that was dealt with, member.
Thank you. Mr. Titus?
Thank you, Chair. I'm mostly covered by what Mr. Doman had said. Just also to say that the names of all of the officials who are either first aiders and or floor marshals are pasted as per the requirements against the walls on all of the floors, so that there is clarity around who those individuals are. The point, sorry, Chair, that the members raising around the scheduling of and the availability of floor marshals and or first aiders on the various days, bearing in mind that we are working within a hybrid context, is something that we will take on board as well, because that is something that needs to be considered going forward, because the schedules are not static. And while the floor marshals and the first aiders are specific people who had been trained, and Mr. Doman and I have had the conversation of expanding the pool of people who can provide those kinds of services. Thank you.
Much for that commitment, Mr. Titus. Speaker?
I'm covered. Thank you, Chair. Chair, sorry, I just want to Member Maseko said for safety reasons the basement has been closed, but I think it's important for the record that in fact it's not for safety reasons, but we've been informed because it is for a fire escape purposes. So perhaps if we could just get some feedback on that, because I mean it was open for five years in the previous term. So what changed from? I mean, it's always been a staircase.
Thank you, Speaker. Is that you, Mr. Doman?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think we have been requested since the last POC also to engage the other departments directly involved, SAPs, because there was also a cost issue. We did receive in writing from Brigadier Peterson, to whom Captain Krieger reports, an official letter indicating the objection of SAPs for the reopening of the C&D garage. What we have done then, we forwarded that specific letter to Department of Infrastructure, Mr. Munari, for his view on that letter, so that we don't just have a one-sided approach, because the approach from SAPS, it deals with the security risk, but infrastructure as the custodian of the building must indicate whether that emergency escape route can be reopened. There was also a risk assessment, a full risk assessment done previously by now known as Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety, where they've also highlighted the risks. in terms of the reopening of that entrance. But Mr. Manari is here, and I did forward that letter to him last week. So if he's in a position to respond on behalf of DOI, then I just want to.
Mr. Roman, Mr. Manari.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe starting with the last point from Mr. Toman. Yes, we've got the letter. We are busy responding to you, Mr. Toman. You will receive our written response before the end of this week. I also just wanted to touch on Member Maseko around the CCTV cameras. Firstly, it must be understood that when it comes to that, infrastructure is provided by Department of Provincial Police Oversight and Community Safety. And monitored through the securities, the provincial securities, and the outsourced companies. However, for the precinct or the national key point, which is the floors you occupied, it's SEPs. It is something that is provided by them, but we now realize that it affects the infrastructure and it affects how we manage these facilities going forward. So it's something that we are seriously engaging with the Treasury. Decision has been made that it should be Department of Infrastructure who drives the CCTV infrastructure. So we're trying to regulate the space because also it's horrific what I found out happening here, to say even if at best budget is available, it shouldn't be Parliament who's paying for CCTV infrastructure because as we have received a letter from Department of Labour, we noticed that cabling and all those things, when these service providers are appointed without the guidance of infrastructure, they run cables and they cause various knock-on problems that we have, not just with the fire, on all other systems, lighting and so on. We've said with the chamber, without lights, you don't know who disturbed the reticulation around the chamber. And this was a few hours before a sitting, so we've got to now rush in and attend to those. So we are looking at that, but the discussions, we're trying to sort that out with the police oversight and community safety, and of course, in our engagements with SEPs.
Yeah, can I just, I don't want to, I mean, so can I just understand? So the recommendation by SAPS, is that a recommendation or is it an instruction that it can't be opened? And who's the decision-making authority at that, for that particular
Through you, Chair, Speaker, ultimately in terms of the PPI SEPs is under the auspice of the Speaker. So I'm not sure if the Speaker can, it's a security issue, but maybe we need to share. I'm not sure whether the Speaker have seen that letter. It seems like a clear instruction in terms of the risk and the resources. So if the resources can be provided, for example, an X-ray machine and a metal detector be placed in that area, and SAPs have the necessary resources, yes, they've indicated that's an option to open it, but we need to put that systems in place, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Colleagues, we are running into trouble when it comes to time. A quick one. Member Lecker, Member Lecker, and then Member Bosman. And then the Secretary. Then we will conclude on this.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I don't mean to make an overemphasis on the issue of the garage, but I think it's a matter of safety. Last month, I worked up until 9 in the evening. And when I walked down, there was no one in the security, in the Bokwe security office. Again, last month, I came into the building just after 7. The garage door was closed. I had to park my car under the trees. And there were street people that were sleeping outside. That poses a risk to us. And Chair, I am pleading with whoever is responsible for our safety to consider our safety versus the safety of the building, because it looks like the building takes precedence over our own safety when we come into or out of the building. The 4th administration, including the 5th administration, were utilizing the underground parking, including even walking and driving. So I don't find it funny, but rather I want whoever is responsible for our own safety to take that into account. It's unacceptable. We encounter so many difficulties coming in and outside. When we were inducted in the 5th administration, we were told one of the reasons why we got access inside the building, you don't have to walk out. It is because sometimes you're running late, you need to be in a meeting immediately, and you don't have to walk against people who are coming in and who are going through security. It's only us who are using this underground parking, including walking up through the media room. Maybe it's politics at play, I do not know, but really it's unacceptable. We can't operate in this way. Sometimes it's raining and we must expose ourselves through rain. It's unacceptable. I'm raising it as a concern and I want it to be taken into account. The fact that Member Makamba Pocha was attacked should raise alarms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Lecker. Member Bosman.
Chair, I just want to ask for clarity. So we require a metal detector to be placed in the C and D garage, but there's currently no metal detector in the other garage that also leads into this building. So if you park in the one garage, you can just walk straight in into the elevator and there's no metal detector. But if you park in the other garage, you require a metal detector. Is that what we're saying?
Thank you very much, Member Bosman. Mr. Dolman.
Yes, no, we have placed the metal detector and the X-ray machine in Queen Victoria Garage, which is known as B Garage. A garage is protected by SAPS 24/7, it should be. So there's no metal detector because the ministers, the premier, they park there, they come through with their VIP protectors. But C and D, the metal detector and X-ray machine that was previously there was on loan from SAPS. So SAPS have withdrawn that. So we need to have our own X-ray machine and metal detector. But I have asked infrastructure, you don't have to respond on a report, but just in terms of the regulation, in terms of using fire escapes, Mr. Manari can maybe just respond in terms of that.
Mr. Manari.
Yes, I think I've indicated, Mr. Doman, that we've got that and we're responding in terms of building compliance. However, it's really a matter that I think WCPP must consider.
Is that the response pending?
Yeah, that's the response, but we will respond. We are responding in terms of the building requirements.
Building requirements. Mr. Secretary?
Chairperson, my concluding remark on this matter is just the following. So there's a multi-institutional responsibility for the safety of the parliamentary precinct. If it's not WCPP, it's either SAPS or the Western Cape Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety. In terms of the area in the C and D garage, I think Mr. Doman has indicated that POX, previously DOCS, had given us an assessment of that specific requirement. Most recently, SAPS have given us an indication, and although they recommend that the entrance currently remain closed in their further information in the letter specifically, they give an indication of what is the requirements for that area to become an official egress and access point. One of it being the deployment of resources. I think they indicate that 5 warm bodies would be required from a SAPS perspective, because that would be their responsibility, and they are currently challenged with the human resource component in terms of that area. For us, it would remain work in progress. Especially with the other stakeholders in that area. It's obviously dependent on who is able to provide the resources for that to become a reality. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Colleagues, that then conclude that matter. As I said, the committee has got opportunity to deal with the recommendations and resolutions on that part. At this point, Department of Infrastructure, thank you very much for your attendance of this committee. And I'm sure that we will definitely have you back as we resolve after this committee for further indulgence on the matter. So thank you so much. And you must have a most wonderful day. Much appreciated. You are now excused. Colleagues, in terms of the agenda, on our next point, the first quarterly performance report and financial statements for the 2023-2024 financial year, April to June. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Chairperson.
My
Thank you,
apologies, Speaker. If you want to make some opening remarks.
No, thank you, Chair. I think as we'll see during the presentation, it's the first quarter, and we've there's obviously some room for improvement, but we are looking forward to the engagement.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, honourable members. Ms. Margot Goldstone, the Director, Strategy and Institutional Oversight, will do the presentation on the non-financial performance for the first quarter, and Madam Peterson, the CFO, and Mr. Jawadin would do the presentations on the financial performance of the WCPP during the reporting period. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Ms. Goldstone.
Good morning, Chairperson and members once again, colleagues. This is the report on the non-financial performance for quarter 1 of 2023-24. In quarter 1, we had a total of 9 indicators and targets that were due for reporting, of which 6 were achieved, which is an overall achievement for quarter 1 of 67%. I'll just reflect on some of the areas where we have underachieved. So of the 3 programs that did have targets, 2 of the programs we had some underachievement. In program 2, Parliamentary Support Services, there were 2 targets that were not achieved: the percentage of House resolutions tracked and the percentage of executive undertakings tracked, and both of these were under the sub-program plenary support. In both instances, it was projected that we would have tracked 100% of the resolutions and the undertakings. However, this was not concluded by the end of the quarter. Under Program 3, Public Engagement, there was 1 target that was not achieved: the percentage implementation of the project plan for the development of the WCPP Engage 1.0, which is also known as the digital platform. And this was mainly due to procurement delays. The rest of the presentation, Chair, deals with the detail per program, and I'll just focus on the areas of achievement. So under Program 1, Governance, Leadership and Administration, under the Office of the Speaker and the Office of the Secretary, under both sub-programs, 100% of the legislative requirements in terms of FAMPLA were met in the quarter. So under the Office of the Speaker, some of those obligations would have included conclusion of a performance agreement with the accounting officer, tabling of the monthly IYM reports, the financial report, as well as the quarterly non-financial reports within specified timeframes. Under the Office of the Secretary, some of those obligations would have included preparation of the first draft annual performance plan and draft budget for the 2024 financial year, as well as preparation of the annual financial statements for 22-23 for submission to the Auditor General. Chairperson, under Program 2, Parliamentary Support Services, again, in terms of the achievements, all of the House papers for the quarter were electronically available as planned. 100% of the committee reports were, in fact, the draft reports were in fact produced in terms of the standards as specified in the standard operating procedures. And all committee decisions or resolutions for the quarter were being tracked by the end of quarter 1. Chairperson, under Program 3, Public Education and Outreach, all of the planned activities were implemented as per the public engagement strategy, which included for quarter 1 activities such as a virtual roundtable with people with disabilities, as well as various public outreach activities in areas like Theewaterskloof and in the Overberg. Chair, that concludes at a high level the performance for the first quarter in terms of non-financials. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Goldstone. I see Member Maseko, Member Lekker, and Member Bosman.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to have an understanding on I think it's on Program 3, on the service provider that was not appointed for the public engagement. If I can get the clarity of what was the purpose, what was that service provider that needed to be appointed? What is it that was going to do? I'm trying to remember, but I remember that it was indicated about the stakeholder or something, but I want to hear if I'm still on track with that. And my apologies from from our officials if I did forget about that. But if we I can find out, and then I'll continue with my question after that has been answered. If you can indulge me with it.
Sure. Thank you, Member Maseko. So in that case, Ms. Goldstone, I will afford you the opportunity to please respond, and then Member Maseko can follow up, and then go over to you. Then we know we've dealt with that one.
Chair, thank you. It's in relation to the digital platform where the service provider was to be appointed to actually do the development of this platform, online platform.
Member Maseko.
Thank you very much. If that's the case, I just want to find out, Chair, that how are we doing it now? And what value is that going to add compared to what we are doing? Because to me, it's like this. If that is not working with whatever service provider that has to come in, you have identified the loophole for that to be needed, because I tend to believe it's a need, not a want. How are you dealing with that? Are we shortchanging the public outreach presently as it is now? And why was not a priority for it to be implemented throughout if there is a sort change that is happening when coming to the public outreach? And that being that presently we have agreed with the standing committee, and we took advice from you that the public hearings for the legislations, that office is the one that it can be the engine to make sure that we maximize in public hearings. Now, if that's the case, why should it be underachieved while there is a need for you, for the core business of this parliament to really legislations to be in operational? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Maseko. Ms. Goldstone. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm going to take that question, Member Maseko. It is in the public engagement space. In a strategic planning meeting in 2019, at the beginning of the 6th Parliament, there was a need expressed to modernize and digitize and to particularly get Western Cape Provincial Parliament on a platform where we can engage digitally with the citizens of the Western Cape Province. We conceptualized the project and worked through several business cases and use cases with great support and help from the ITDS section. When we started to procure for this, it was going to be done through LSS funds, donor funding from the European Union. But then COVID hit us in 2020 and they declared a force majeure where we could not procure and could not procure for quite some time. As a result of that delay, we resolved that we would procure it from WCPP and no longer rely on the LSS funding. When we went out for quotations for this system, we found that the quotations that were received exceeded the budget that we had and exceeded the tender threshold. So we had to augment the budget for that and go out on tender. We did go out on tender. We did find 2 service providers. It was a long process to evaluate all the tenders, but the bid evaluation committee recently decided to cancel the tender because we felt that the proposals by the service providers, particularly considering cybersecurity, were not adequate. We are currently in discussions as to how much has changed economically for WCPP and the province in South Africa, as you know, and whether this should still be considered a priority. That's a discussion that we're having at the moment with the Secretary and the CFO. And as soon as there is a firm resolution on this matter, don't know, Secretary, whether you want to elaborate, but as soon as there's a firm decision on this matter, we will report back. Whenever we defer projects, we want to say that there's definitely value to be added. It's not the reason for deference. The deference is purely from an economical perspective, and that it would make a lot more sense to enhance when we have the money for the luxury of enhancement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bashir. Mr. Secretary.
Chairperson, thank you, Chairperson. If Ms. Bashir can maybe just also assist by indicating, because I think this is part of the question that Honourable Maseko had asked, well, what value would the digitized system have added or add to the current processes that we are putting in place to ensure that there are public engagement workshops before a public hearing and the attendance that parliamentary support services and public engagement directorates are currently collaborating on. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for that, Secretary. We have found in our engagements with people throughout the province that there are various issues with physical attendance of things like public hearings. When it is during the day, people have to take leave. When it's in the evening, there's a safety concern. Also, there's a childcare concern in a lot of our communities. We also found that the youth are completely disengaged. They're not interested in coming to a town hall. They want instant information and they want to communicate instantly. And what the digital online platform would allow, and like I said, the government has one which is web-based. The Parliament of Botswana has one. Rwanda has one. Scottish Parliament has one as well, where the citizens registers on the app, like you register for any app, download. You put in your address, your ID number, you're verified, and you are then put into contact with your constituency heads from the various parties. So you have the opportunity to make submissions, to submit petitions, but also to raise queries with your elected public representatives. So the idea was to connect the elected public representatives to the people that they represent on an app, so that it's quick and easy. They don't have to travel, they don't have to call, and we can have meaningful engagement with the public and provide feedback so that we can deepen democracy in the province. So there's a plethora of value adds that this could bring to WCPP. And we really hope to achieve that in the future.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fisher. Member Maseko, is that your last follow-up on this show?
Thank you very much, Chair. But now what I'm trying to find out is, maybe Secretary will help me. So the concept is adopted 2019. And there's identified need for that. And then from there, the COVID happened. In between that, because of the funding, and in between, and now financial constraints are giving us directions. You have to cut and chop somewhere. Now, in my mind is you have to go back to the drawing board to say now, how do we maximize with the limited amount that we have? Quotations received were expensive, that were not affordable for the institution. And surely that means that the possibility it might be ongoingly that you cannot afford, that you cannot get a company that you can afford. So the same department has to go back to the drawing board and say, now, how do we maximize? How do we do this? So from 2019 to now, what extra thing was done to fill in that void that they have identified from the concept, conceptualizing that idea of digitization in 2019? Is there something maybe that has happened that is presently closing that void that they've identified that there's a need for that? That's all for me.
Thank you, member. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, we did. We initially wanted to do the digital online platform and the stakeholder database as one, because it has very interconnected functionalities. Sorry. Then we, in order to at least proceed with one part of the project, we split the two, and we procured the stakeholder database separately. That reduced the cost, but the stakeholder database was also not where we had any problems. So that has been procured already, and that is in use already. In order to address the issue with the funding, we also broke down the app into 3 phases, so that initially we have a more basic app, which we can build upon as we have funding. Even that has been found to be a bit, well, to still be outside of the price bracket. But we proceeded with the stakeholder database. We're also working on enhancing website functionality year on year. We are struggling a bit with service provider at the moment, but that is something that we are looking at doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Member Lecker.
Thank
Then we will get to you, Member Boseman.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm sure I would be latching on what Member Maseko has been raising, particularly around the issue of public participation. The concept as explained by Ms. Fisher seems to be quite interesting. But I think for certain communities, it doesn't work well. For someone like me, even though I'm in the metro, I'm deployed in a community that is 80% poor, and they do not have access to a digitalized kind of environment. And on a monthly basis, there are public meetings called by councillors. And I think for me, a digital concept does not work. And I think in as much as it is, we are in a century where we must modernize the manner in which we do our work, we really need to go and use the traditional route. And this takes me to how we organize public engagements in preparation for the bills that are taking place. For instance, we've got a bill that is out, that one of NHI, There was the bill of the fundraising from social development. And I think if we want to encourage physical engagement and participation of our communities, we must also look into the traditional way of advertising this. And I think starting from there, Chair, the idea of linking public reps works very well, but it must be done in a way in which it will respond to the economic challenges that our people are faced with. And therefore, Chair, to consider the concept of identifying stakeholders in Philippi or in Lower Crossroad and Old Crossroad may not work, because even those stakeholders may not be reporting to the entire community. So I think it's going to be important that we, from time to time, touch base with the elected leadership or the elected public reps in those areas through constituency heads. And I think what also comes into mind, Chair, would be the idea of taking public participation directly to communities. Because the idea of bringing people to Whale Street may not work because of quotations that may come high, or because of finances that as Parliament we may not have. So I think we need to consider going directly to communities. At least we've got securities that always come out with us when we go to communities. So I think, Chair, we may unintendedly have unintended consequences as a result of how we do things. So, Chair, I think because we do not want to shortchange communities, we must directly go out to communities to avoid certain things that we may be hearing today in respect to how we engage communities, because public participation is the core of our business. So I'm really tempted to want to ask the administration to consider going to communities, because not all communities are organized in terms of stakeholders. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Lekker. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chair. And before Ms. Fushia responds, I think there's fundamentals that we just need to understand. So Parliament as certain functions, constitutional mandates, and public participation and lawmaking being one of them, being the cornerstone of Parliament, or why we are here as elected public representatives. We are, after all, lawmakers. With that being said, Chair, the public hearings and the identification of venues for public hearings is Honourable Lekker, not determined by the administration, but rather by the committee of a particular committee that goes out for public hearings. The discussion that we could possibly have is on budgets and resources to committees, but the actual identification is not determined by the administration. So that's the one side of it. I'm also reminded that the POC requested a stakeholder database a couple of months ago, where exactly these stakeholders that the institution engages was presented to the POC. So if there is and I know this from previous terms already, that if there's a stakeholders that is not on there, you can inform the administration on engaging those stakeholders. So I just think we need to be taking into account with our core mandates, what the role is, and the fact that the public education and outreach unit consists of 4 people serving 7.2 million citizens in this province. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Speaker. And then Member Bosman.
Chairperson, Chair, my first question would be, what is the need to build a public engagement tool when there are, just my last check, I think there are just over 41 off-the-shelf public engagement tools that are available internationally. And if we look at the most, I think it's the most used one in South Africa at the moment, and the free one is through the Parliamentary Monitoring Group. I think it's called the People's Assembly. It has a similar function where it's free, and it's currently doing the service where it links MPs and MPLs to constituencies and allows citizens to submit petitions and to submit questions and requests to MPs. And we sometimes get those requests from members of the public. I'm not sure if any of the other members have gotten it, but I've certainly received in the last 4 months about, I think, 17 emails from members of the public about a specific bill where they've got a pre-prepared script that comes to me, and it's come through that People's Assembly tool. So my first question is, what is the need to build the WCPP's own? And why are we not just looking at sort of partnering with the existing tools that are available, specifically the free ones in public service, and then also linking it to what's happening in municipalities, for instance, across the Western Cape as well. I think about 6 municipalities in the province already have public participation tools through apps and their websites. And then the other part of the question is, in terms of the WCPP's engagement with citizens at the moment, my understanding is that PEO does public education and outreach, and then the communications department manages the website and social media presence. What we've noticed, in my experience, and I had a conversation with the Minister of Finance about this, is the WCPP puts out content on social media, on Facebook, for instance, but there's nobody from the WCPP that moderates or engages citizens. And with the current bill around the increase in the size of the WCPP, there's actually a member of the public who's acting as the moderator and answering questions and providing information to members of the public, which I found really interesting, because I was looking at this conversation and I was amazed by how much this guy actually knew. And then he keeps on disclaiming he does not work for the WCPP. He's not a member of the WCPP. This is just based on information that he's gone to source because he was frustrated with that there was no answers to the questions. I'm a member of the what's called Engage, which the Scottish Parliament runs. I used to work in my previous life, I used to work for the Scottish Youth Parliament. So I know that tool, and it's a web-based tool that's built on their website. And it's a tool that's come, I think the Scottish Parliament's probably been the first in the UK and in Europe that's had digital engagement, and that came from their petitions committee. And that entire tool is premised around their website, but it's linked into the idea that through Engage, they've got a team behind it that manages it, because it requires you, when questions are submitted, it requires someone to respond, and those responses either gets filtered down through to the committees, through the committee chairperson and the committee coordinator, if it's a content specific thing. And what they also allow people to do is to submit issues and ideas that affect them, and that gets sent through to parliamentarians as well. But it's quite a sort of moderation intensive activity. So my question is, if we're building an app, are we going to have the human resource capacity to manage the content that the app is going to generate? Because I think we're going to set the PEO up for failure if we now have this expectation. And we saw with the engagement around COVID-19 through WhatsApp and through email and social media, I think we got just over 21,000 inputs, which people had to go through. And I don't think we had that capacity to do it. So we need to ask ourselves, if we're building this and people do then knock at our doors and start engaging with us, what do we do with that engagement and how do we respond? And does it ultimately become 3 people's job to respond to all of that? Because then they're going to be busy 24/7. And then the last part of the question is around, how does the digital engagement strategy link into the broader social development strategy? How does it link into the strategic objectives around communicating what the WCPP does? Because the Scottish Parliament's digital strategy is linked into how their parliament is managed overall. So they've got a very specific idea of what content goes out on Twitter, for instance. So their Twitter account is seen as a corporate business account where they push information out, and they're very clear they don't engage on that. Whereas Instagram is set up to show people how Parliament works and sort of the day-to-day of what an MSP does and what the secretary does and what the speaker does, etc. And then they've got Facebook where it's linked to Engage, where it's about building community. So the question would be, how integrated is this product into the broader communication and social media, but also generally public engagement strategy of Parliament? So the three questions would be, short is, why build something? Because building is the expensive part. Is there capacity to manage? And has there been planning for the types of management that's going to be required? Has there been conversations with PMG and the People's Assembly and with municipalities about sort of using the tools that are available and that have been built already? And then the last question is around, how does it fit into the broader strategy?
Thank you, Member Bosman. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will definitely look into off-the-shelf products that are available. Like I said earlier, we are very stringent with regards to our stakeholder information as well as our cybersecurity, and we will have to make sure that those requirements are met. In terms of the management and the overall strategy, remember, this is not an engagement between the members of the public and WCPP. It will be an engagement between a member of the public and his or her elected representative that represents his or her constituency that they live in. So it's not intended to be people engaging with WCPP and PEO response. That is not the kind of tool that we had in mind. How it fits in the broader scope is that we decided in 2019 and even before that, we're looking at modernization and digitization. It links in with the plenary strategy that involves the House Papers app, the voting app, the ITDS strategy for digital enhancement. And this is in the public engagement space, the connecting directly of citizens and members, whereas we still, with what Honourable Lekker raised, we still have the in-person. We've conducted 35 public education workshops this year so far. And that is not counting the public hearings and the focused stakeholder engagements that we have had. So that in person, that's so invaluable, and it really still happens again. It still happens, and it will always happen. This is just to augment and to catch those citizens that we have lost, in particular the youth. So, Honourable Bosman, to answer your question, it forms part of the WCPPs. You will know that our vision is to be a modern, relevant Parliament. And all of this is building blocks that fit into that stuff. Thank you.
Don't see any further hand from Member Bosman. Member Maseko, your hand was up.
Just a quick one. I want to find out, because you had the problem from the start when coming to this digitization system. Why did you put it as a one of the targets before you can? Because it's sort of like you set yourself for a failure within to put it while you don't even have confidence that by when will that happen? Looking at the financial constraints and looking back from the COVID-19. What was the reason for you to put it there? It's a quick one. It's interesting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the time that we drew up the strategic plan, that was July 2019. We didn't know that COVID was going to hit us. We didn't know that the economy would suffer as a result of COVID the way that it did. We didn't know that we would, for a year, but more than a year, not be able to procure this process. And when we could resume it, we didn't want to take it off because we set our targets to strive for, to aim for. You don't want to set targets that is rote, that is things that you would do as a matter of course. So we didn't want to remove it because we were still actively pursuing it, and we're just now coming to the point where we're saying, you know what, maybe this is something that we have to, under the current economic circumstances that we are in, that we need to reconsider as a priority and refocus. We've also, in the meantime, got a production company to shoot a public education and outreach video. I shared the link with all the members so that we can use that to digitally send throughout the province so that we don't have to put so much strain on our resources. So those are the small things we've done to try to compensate for not being able to do it. But as we say, we now have to sit back and say, this is 2023. It's not 2019 anymore. Let's relook, let's reprioritize, and let's refocus. Speaker said back to basics. It's maybe something that we need to look at and try to build from there.
Thank you very much, Ms. Forsier. Member Maseko.
Thank you. If I can make a comment, I think there's nothing normal in the space where we are that taking a decision about changing your goalpost from 2019 to 2023. It's acceptable to it. We never knew we will have stage 6 of load shedding. So we also trying to make sure that we don't shortchange the service that we have to deliver within the institution. But we also think out of the box to say, how do we replace what we thought will be workable to something else? It's something that it's our new norm that we have to think that way. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Maseko. Colleagues? None? No more questions on the non-financials. Mr. Jawardin, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to share my screen quickly. Chair, good morning, Chair and members. Just with regards to the first quarter financial statements of IOM as at the end of June, specifically looking at our expenditure versus the budget as at the end of June, specifically a quarter way through the year, which is the first quarter. Of our total budget for the year of 240,242,000, whereas we have, as at the end of June, spent 51,161,000, which is an effective percentage spend of 21.3%. As at the end of June, we fairly on track with our expenditure against budget. However, the main reason for the slow expenditure on projections, particularly due to the fact that we had some vacancies as at the end of our June, which subsequently have either been filled or in the process of being filled. And the one other main reason is the fact that as at the end of June, normally we would have paid all political parties their secretarial and constituency allowances, their second quarter advance by the end of June, but that is dependent on a audited financial statement being approved. However, as at the end of the quarter, not all political parties' AFS was approved, hence the second quarter advance was only paid in the beginning of the second quarter. Just to go very briefly through the expenditure per program. With regards to Program 1, we had about a 20% spend on Program 1, and that's mainly due to vacant posts. However, we fairly on track with regards to expenditure on Program 1. With regards to Program 2, we spent 25%, so we're fairly on track with regards to expenditure there. Just to let members know as well that with regards to expenditure and keeping track of expenditure as well as any early warning signals for any over or under expenditure, we do have monthly meetings with sub-program managers to identify specifically if there is any areas of concern where there are either slow expenditure or the possibility of insufficient funding for approved projects. However, that we do discuss and plan during our monthly IOM meetings. With regards to Program 3, we spent just less than 19%, 18.48% of that budget. And the main reason for that is vacant posts, as well as, which was discussed previously, the fact that the digital online platform is projected for spending in the latter part of the financial year. So obviously that expenditure wouldn't have come through in the first quarter. We're expecting that percentage to increase later on during the financial year. With program 4, we spent 20% of that budget. And specifically, we can see with regards to the constituency and secretarial allowance, that percentage will obviously increase in the second quarter due to the fact that we have sort of caught up with regards to the second quarter advances for the political parties that they have been paid either in July or August, in relation to approved financial statements for political parties. With regards to program 5, we're fairly on track on there, but just specific to note on there that obviously the member salary increases only came into effect in August, hence the slow expenditure in quarter 1. However, we are on track specifically with that expenditure. And Chair, that very briefly is a summary of our expenditure and where we are currently with our financial position and performance as at the end of the first quarter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawardin. Members? I see Member Lekker. Is that the only question? Member Lekker, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is around the allocation of the budget. I just want to get a quick one as to how much of the budget, particularly for committees, is and how much of it has been used thus far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member. Mr. Jawardin.
Through you, Chair. With regards to the committee's budget, if I can particularly concentrate on standing committees, the allocated budget for the financial year is 2.662 million. As at the end of the first quarter, we spent 1.2 million of that. So that's a 45% spend on as at the end of June. However, just to make note specifically that budget will be supplemented with rollovers of the 22-23 financial year with an extra R1 million specifically due to the increase in lawmaking, etc., etc. As mentioned previously, in our monthly meetings with the sub-program manager as well as the director, where we do specifically discuss the allocation of that towards standing committees and where we're currently looking at whether that budget is sufficient or if there is any possible early warning signs with regards to that is insufficient or not. At our last meeting as in August, we had the sub-program manager has indicated that with the additional funding that will be coming through to standing committees in the adjustments estimate, he is currently showing a saving specifically within the budget. So it looks like unless there is any additional lawmaking funding that's coming through that is unplanned, but we are currently looking at the funding being provided to standing committee being sufficient for the current financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any follow-ups, Member Lekker?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to understand also the budget as it is.
Is that a new question, Member?
No, it's not.
Okay.
The budget that has been allocated, is there any specification as to what it is that it must be spent on, particularly in committees? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jawardin.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the allocated budget, we provide the sub-program a budget which the sub-program manager will then allocate specifically to the different standing committees. There is a formula that is being utilized for the allocations per standing committees. And I think either Mario or Mr. Mele can elaborate on that specifically. But how the budget is allocated is basically how the actual standing committees do the oversight visits, etc. However, just to touch on the other part of Mele's question, the additional 1 million or the 1.5 of which the 1 million will be added to standing committee, that is specifically earmarked for lawmaking. So the standing committees does get the standard budget, which is obviously what they have every financial year, and that is used for whether it's catering, oversight, venues, etc., etc. The additional funding that's coming through in the adjustment assessment from rollovers is specifically earmarked for additional lawmaking within standing committees and public education and outreach.
Thank you, Mr. Jawardin. I see the secretary and then the speaker. Speaker, you want to go first?
I just wanted to say that also, as members are aware, and in the last year before, at the end of a term, we getting bills from being referred to provinces that dates back as 2019. So with that in mind, obviously there will be enormous amount of pressure on the committee budget. So we need to ensure that the lawmaking process continues. And so the every last saving that this administration, I'm very vocal about it, before anything else goes to committees in order for the constitutional mandate of this parliament is funded adequately in order for members to do their work. So and I mean that's a commitment that I've made from the beginning, but also members must just, I don't want to say bear with us, because legislation is legislation and we need to make provision for that. But from the administration side, there is a commitment that committees will be funded in order to perform their constitutional mandates and functions.
Speaker, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the questions from Honourable Leke and Honourable Maseko. Before Mr. Stimele as the program manager and Mr. Sussman as the sub-program manager also adds to the responses, just the following. So in the sub-program specifically, we have two budgets. The one budget is for committee support. So that would be for a component that provides support to committees. And the other budget is for the actual work of committees. As the accounting officer would like to think that we are not prescriptive as to how the second budget is utilized and planned for, as opposed to the first one where staff compensation of employees come from and every other matter. Over the past few years, there's been a formula that would have been applied to how committees get funded. I think if you look at the annual reports of committees, some committees are more active than others in terms of the standing committees. And even from our experience now from the bills that we would have received from the NCOP, we would see that some committees do get bills, multiple bills. Other committees might not get a bill or only gets a minimal number of bills in terms of the process. So that's why all committees, I would like to think, should not be treated equal because of the activities that happens in each of the committees. Adding to what and that I would like to think would still be work in progress, even in the 7th Parliament, because as we would be establishing new committees in the 7th Parliament, once the committees and the support staff to those committees at the start of the parliamentary term gets to understand what the committee intends to focus on in terms of lawmaking, oversight and public participation for the parliamentary term, it makes it easier for a planning exercise then to happen and then for a budgeting exercise to happen. Chairperson, adding to what the speaker had said, I think we all understand, and especially the members, that bills that have already been introduced, whether it be here in the WCPP or in the NCOP, if it doesn't get attended to before the conclusion of the current parliamentary term, it then lapses, and then there's matters that need to be attended to in the new parliamentary term, and we wouldn't want that to happen. Considering we are in a position, like Mr. Jawadin had said, to give additional funding specifically for the lawmaking activities. There might be, even towards the end of the current calendar year or parliamentary term, be a few more pieces of legislation that comes for the WCPP to attend to that we might not have planned. At least we would then have the funding available to attend to those in terms of the committee work that needs to happen, including public hearings in our districts related to those activities. Chairperson, I thought maybe just to add that, and if Mr. Stimele, who's online, and Mr. Sussman would want to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Stimele, thank you also for indicated early today that you will be online. Any additions from your side?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members and Speaker and Deputy Speaker and colleagues. Chair, currently or in the past, this is how we would do things. When we received the budget for the Standing Committee, we will take the 1/3 and put it aside for international study tours. And then whatever that we have would, without using any formula, distribute equitably or equally to all the standing committees, except other committees, which is other committees will be the internal arrangements committees of the institution and also the NCOP. So as the operations
Mr. Stemele, my apologies for interrupting you. It is a bit difficult to hear you in the chambers. Do you mind perhaps just speaking up or moving closer to your mic so that we can have a better sound quality? You may continue, Mr. Stemele.
Chairperson, I'm not sure if the chair can hear me now.
A bit better. Yes, thank you, Mr. Stemele.
So in the past, Chair, what would happen would be that we would have a 1/3 that will be allocated for international study tours. And equally, then we share the amount to all the standing committees and have a smaller percentage for other committees that wouldn't really have activities that are taking them out of the institution. Then, but within that, when other committees supposed to understand, other committees will be more active than others, then it will make it easier for us to move the funds from one committee to another during the course of the year. However, now we've found that, look, probably it is worth that we should understand, at least upfront, how much or how is the committee planning its year or its financial year, so that we can see how best can we give the money to it, and also taking into cognizance what has been the program of the committee in the previous financial year, so that we can have at least a predictable operating environment. So we've tried to do that. Yes, it is a working in progress. Things have not yet worked smoothly. However, as the Speaker and the Secretary have said, that with all what is happening, especially in the final year of the parliamentary term, we tend to receive a lot of other bills that others may not even be expected. So we said that with the additional funds that we may get, can we then have them and only looking for lawmaking, as we are not sure how much we need. An example is that currently the committee that is looking at the seats for the Western Cape Provincial Parliament had its own public hearings, but based on the inputs that they've received, they've also decided that, look, we need 2 more extra public hearings. And all those extra public hearings will cost us some money. And within that particular budget, there are issues like your communication, there'll be interpretation, there'll be issues for the accommodation of members, for the transport of members, for the accommodation of the interpreters themselves. So within all that particular budget, then it is the same reason that we said for this particular year, at least, can we have the additional funding being dedicated for lawmaking, as this may be a cost that we cannot really determine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stemele. Mr. Sasman, anything you would like to add?
Good morning, Chair. Chair, a lot has been said already by previous speakers, but I think just to touch on what Honourable Lecker has inquired about in terms of what, I can put it in the terms of line items the committee would be spending on. Some of it has been mentioned, but it is mainly accommodation, it's catering, it's adverts, and that adverts is social advertising as well as printed media. The catering is also split between for the committee, but also for the credit card usage for restaurants, if I can put it that way. Then there's venues, which is not really much. The other big item is transport for the public and for members, especially flights and ground transport. And then when we've got bigger, let's say, visit weeks, or a committee going on a visit or multiple visits in a week, that can be quite costly when it comes to accommodation and these line items that have been mentioned. When it comes to public hearings, as Mr. Stamele mentioned, it can be very difficult to project for because we do not know, number one, what legislation will be with us when, as the speaker also mentioned, and then also what the extent of the committee's request would be for having public hearings. Are we going to have one public hearing or 7 or 21? So it makes it very difficult to manage the budget. But we have put measures in place where committees would identify what their business plan is for the year, and that is continually updated throughout the year. And that business plan is costed with or in terms of projections. So I think let me leave it there. Thanks, Chairperson.
Mr. Sasman, Member Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair, and also thanks for the clarity. I just want to find out, already the first quarter, we are on 45% from the allocated budget to the committees. If maybe we can get it from the last financial year, where were we on the first quarter? If maybe you have that information at hand, and what is different for this financial year if maybe we have spent a lot more than the past financial year. Towards the end of the year last year, the chairpersons, we had the budget that we placed, we had the sessions that we had about the plans for this financial year. Question is, to what an extent was that considered when allocating the budget to different committees? Was it considered or was not considered? And if not, what are the reasons that that was not looked at? And also, so like I said, I think when we're talking about the PO, there are things that are not normal that we have to shift and change. So we've got the budget, we've got the Committee of Mobility, the Committee of Infrastructure, which is totally different from Human Settlement. Human Settlement it's just a branch within that portfolio, and I'm making the example. Now, if we have to react and we have to be advised from the official side as the committee, as we take the decisions, and with what has been happening and the financial constraints, what will be the advice? What will be the priorities? And I'm going to say this because when we had the public hearings, we planned as the committee speaker for the expropriation bill. The officials advise us how many public hearings we can afford to have due to budgetary constraints. So we do respect it's not always the committee that takes a decision. So we were advised because of the financial constraints, and we did understand that was the case. So somewhere, somehow also, to what an extent can the officials advise the committee members to say, where are we financially and what needs to happen, what need not to happen, not shortchanging the oversight responsibility of the committees, because it's one of the conversations that we have to be brutally honest to have with each other, to say, how can we go about, and not when Standing Committee of Member Maseko overspend, you give highlight to it. If I underspend, I'm a good person. How do you evaluate what I'm doing versus what is not done per the committees, that balance? Because it's a conversation that we have to have within the institution, with the chairpersons and with the committee members to come to to be aligned in their thinking, looking at the financial constraints, and also getting that balance of not shortchanging responsibility of this institution within our communities, because we have to continue doing that oversight. We have to continue making it look better as it has always looked better before. And I think maybe, Chair, with your indulgence, the last thing it will be, the difficulties, financial constraints, the difficulties that we are having now, or that have been identified, or that have been highlighted each and every time you try to do something within the committees. It's acknowledged. We are not ignoring that red flag of the financial constraints, but we are saying again, bring us to the party as the chairpersons to say that now how do we go about and with what? Because if I just walk in there without any knowledge of what is it, where are we now? I did the planning of my committee and said, I'm going to spend about, example, 400,000, you allocate 80,000. And you don't call me and say, this is where we are, there isn't being 1, 2, 3, 4. That is going to be your problem, not mine. Because already I've said to you that this is what I've planned, and you didn't come back to me to say, can you cut on some of your plannings because of we've got only 20 cents for you for the financial year. That's all, Chair.
Thank you, Member Maseko. Speaker, are you responding or the Secretary? Okay, sure. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you, Chairperson. I trust Mr. Javelin is in order that I respond to the questions. Thank you to Honourable Maseko for the question. So Honourable Maseko, through you, Chairperson, and maybe to all of the chairpersons of committees, planning cannot happen in isolation. So in our case, I think it was in January of this year, we had a planning session as the administration. The budgeting process for committees was then happening. The planning session of the administration was provided with a summary of what all committees envisage in terms of their activities, but also the costing of those activities. It came out to an amount that would have necessitated us having to cut in other areas of the institution, and maybe putting us in a position where we would not have been in a position to honor even our existing contractual commitments. Okay, I would like to think, Chairperson, that, and that's why I said it is work in progress, that when we get to an indicative amount of what committees could possibly get in a financial year, that the chairpersons of the relevant committees should then be in a position to sit around the table and then to see how that indicative amount could possibly be spent. Like I had previously said, there are some committees who are more active than other committees, not because the committees don't want to do their work, but because of the nature of the committees in terms of the work that they need to do. And maybe that is what we should do in the next budgetary process before we get to the financial year. We give an indication of what we foresee to be an amount based on the constraints for committees in total, and the committee chairpersons then agree on how that amount could possibly be divided, knowing from our experience who are the more active committees and the others that are not so active, Chairperson. I think that's probably, it won't be the perfect solution, but it will surely be progress from where we are now. With regards to the advice received from the procedural staff, okay, I would like to think, Chairperson and Honourable Maseko, that it is but advice. Okay, and when I say but advice, so if I was to be the procedural officer, I would say, Honourable Chairperson, we currently only have R5 in our budget. Can we work with the R5 in order for it to happen? If the chairperson then tells me I'm actually needing R7.50, okay, then I would go back to my budget holder to say, can we get an additional R2.50 to meet the needs of that specific committee? As the budget holder and as me being the accounting officer, my expectation is then that the budget holder looks within the program or the sub-program, whether that committee can be assisted. I've also heard that you mentioned that the issue of communication might be something, Chairperson, that would also have to be work in progress, because surely feedback needs to happen in order for the Chairperson at least to understand the plan is not workable because of these challenges, or we are going to have to amend some part of the plan to stay within the budget or the limitations that the program provides for. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, I'm partly covered by the Secretary. It's merely advice. I would like to think that committees works independently, and that the lawmakers tasked and elected to do their work are empowered to do so. I think let me leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I do not see any further hands. Mr. Jawadin.
For you, Chair, I think there's one more question from Member Skeko regarding the expenditure from the first quarter. So if I can just touch on the expenditure as it is current financial year. So we spent of the 2.6 million, that 1.2 million, which is that 45% that Member Maseko had mentioned. That if I can take it from this year, there is an isolated incident specifically for that because of the study visit that took place in the first quarter, which obviously had caused a spike in the actual expenditure. But for the actual expenditure question from Member Maseko, at the same time last year, we spent 813,000. Last year's budget was only 1 million. However, in the adjustments estimate, we did supplement that with another 1.8 million. However, as at the end of the first quarter last year, we spent 813,000 versus this year's 1.2 million. But like I said, the difference primarily due to the fact that there was a study visit that took place in the first quarter in this current financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Jawadin. You're welcome, Member Maseko.
I think what I wanted to find out, excluding the normal committee expenditure, excluding the international study tours, is there any difference from the past financial year versus this year, or our spending in the committees? Just considering that there are committees that are not active as the others, but our spending trend, is it the same or there is a difference from this first quarter versus the past financial year?
Okay, thank you. Just with regards to that, I would say if you take the study tours away, then the expenditure trend is more or less similar from last year this year. So there isn't really any specific that happens unless Mario wanted to disagree with me, but I think the expenditure trends over the first quarter last year and this year was more or less the same specifically. And the trends over the years specifically, as we have our individual monthly highway meetings, we do pick up on, and Mario, the sub-program manager does identify and alert us if there is additional, we call it expenditure that is in the pipeline and projected for. But if I look at specifically quarter on quarter, first quarter, I think it's fairly consistent over the past few years.
Member Maseko.
A new thing, we just came back from the oversight, and the unfortunate part is yesterday we had stakeholders, a lot of stakeholders following us that they were not happy. And I do understand the issue of the law enforcement now is taken away because they say they cannot afford. But do we see ourselves, the institution, having to go and look how can we go about for that? And going to the elections is going to be a little bit difficult if we don't have that support, that maybe we can throw it back to Secretary and the Speaker for them to regroup to say how are we going to go about, because of yesterday is just a learning curve that something needs to happen, because it's going to be a difficult, and understand the law enforcement because also financial constraints, they cannot afford that. But that means it's either the organogram has to change for us to have the skilled people that can go with the committees, or I don't know what will be, but if you can look into that, Secretary and Speaker, to help the committees for in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Maseko. Speak. Mr. Secretary, and then the speaker.
Thank you, Chairperson. Again, thank you, Member Maseko. I this morning had a conversation with the brigadier at the South African Police Services, and we've identified the need for even support in between venues. So not just at the venue, but traveling from point A to point B also, especially leading up to the end of the current financial year. And the brigadier had indicated that it's something that they will be looking into. We've also previously communicated with the I think it's the divisional commissioner responsible for the service, and we are waiting a written response in terms of that specific need. So we have made contact already with the South African Police Services regarding yesterday and what measures we can put in place to attend to that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Speaker.
I just wanted to, and I'm partly covered by what the secretary is saying. I just want to again say that we take it as seriously as what the members, as it is raised by the members. At the end of the day, it's when you performing the functions of Parliament, and it is not necessarily just for members. But it's also for the staff or the support staff accompanying members on these public engagements. So it is flagged as a risk, and it is attending the necessary, or has the necessary action already assigned to it.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Member Bosman. Okay. I understand. I completely understand. Mr. Titus and then Mr. Dowman.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to what the Secretary and the Speaker had indicated, the previous service that we had with community safety, they have received a legal opinion to indicate that that particular service is completely outside of their scope and mandate. And that is the main reason as to why they're not delivering that service any longer. There are particular issues pertaining to this service going forward. And as the Secretary had indicated, this is definitely something that we have been engaging with the South African Police Services on. We have corresponded with them in writing. We are still looking to receive a correspondence from them in return. But there is an ongoing conversation around the safety of members and staff, especially on oversight visits.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Titus. Mr. Dowman.
No, I was just pointing out Mr. Titus raised his hand.
Thank you so much. Reiterated the fact. I do not see any further hands, and Member Bosman is packing his stuff. Mr. Secretary, were there any feedback on any instructions issued in terms of Section 37.6 and Section 66.2 of FAMPLA?
Yeah, Chairperson, if you maybe would allow me to make a concluding remark on the budget. I think the members would know on the pressures and the continued pressures, even new pressures that would come on the budget of the province as a whole, but also on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Like during COVID, as the administration, we're looking at areas where we could cut. We're looking at areas such as possible domestic and international travel, possibly catering, and then matters of accommodation. Because we've had an engagement with Treasury, I think about a week ago, and the picture does look a bit bleak in terms of what the expectation would be on scenarios that budget votes needs to do. So those are the three areas that we're going to look at, maybe seeing where we can spend less in favor of lawmaking, public participation and oversight that would need to happen as part of the core mandate of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Speaker, any closing remarks from your side?
No, just thank you very much for the manner and the robust discussion. I think it's always it's good to have this kind of engagements, because ultimately we learn, we fix, and we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. Secretary, on the
Chairperson,
question.
I haven't answered the question. So as at the reporting period, during the reporting period, the secretary had not received any instructions in terms of section 37 and 66 of FAMPLA. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Davids, that deals with our business, and we can excuse the speaker in WCPP. Mr. Secretary, Speaker, and the entire team, thank you so much for your indulgence. We'll see you back soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm sure there's refreshments in the members' lounge for you. Thank you so much. Hmm? Yeah.
It's just this report, Chair, that you can read out, and then just these 2 minutes.
Okay, so we'll first deal with this now. No?
And I'll just say the report, Chair.
So we just confirm this.
Yes, they must just confirm what they just needs to read. Just shit out the letter.
Good point. Thank you. Yes, please. On the screen, yes. Colleagues, if you can please have a look at the committee report on the screen with the reference number 11414 dated today. The draft committee report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, having considered the quarterly financial and performance information for the first quarter of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for the 2023-2024 financial year, reports as follows. The Parliamentary Oversight Committee report that it convened on the 20th of September 2023 and has concluded its deliberations on the quarterly financial and performance information for the first quarter of the 2023-2024 financial year for WCPP, which was referred to it in terms of Standing Rule 89.1 of WCPP. The committee interrogated the WCPP in terms of the information that was tabled and referred to the committee as legislated under Section 17(2)(a) of the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2009, FAMPLA. The committee considered and adopted, or rather, I put the report, the draft report, to the committee to be considered. Members, Member Maseko.
I move that we support the report, Chair.
My apologies, Member.
I move that we support that report.
Thank you very much, Member Maseko. Yes, I was. I was putting the question to the committee and Member Maseko responded. Member Bosman supports. Is it unanimous concurrence? Thank you very much, Member Lecker. Subsequently, colleagues, the committee considered and adopted this report unanimously at its meeting on the 20th of September 2023. That deals with the report duly adopted unanimously. Thank you very much, members. Then we have another 2 pieces that we need to deal with. The one is, or rather 2 sets of minutes of the meeting of the 21st of June 2023. Members? Yes, sure.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, this minutes was basically for the 21st of June was our virtual meeting. And that was the meeting in which, if you can remember, Chair, that the members experienced tremendous connectivity issues. So some of the agenda items were addressed, but there were no other matters. The last 2 agenda matters were not addressed, Chair, because as the minutes states on the 3rd page, the beginning of the 3rd page, that due to connectivity issues that the chairperson stopped the meeting. The committee immediately went just to adopt some of its own internal documents as like now.
And then there was just one resolution that the committee sits on that cyber attack issue, which I believe that the committee did sit on the 1st of September, somewhere in the late week of August. So that's basically what happened in this meeting, Chairperson, on the 21st of June.
Thank you so much. That is absolutely clear. Member Maseko?
Thank you very much, Chair. I move that we adopt this. I looked at the resolution because I remember that that was the case and is duly recorded in there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Member Maseko. There's a proposer, seconder. I see the Honorable Letter. Member Bosman? Thank you very much for. Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Member Bosman. And then the last set of minutes is that of Friday, the 1st of September, 2023. Please do check, members. You find it in order. Proposer, Member Bosman, seconder, Member Lecker. Unanimously accepted and so recorded. Mr. Davids, we've dealt with all our business.
So our next meeting will be the annual report in October next month.
Okay, so we'll see each other at the annual report engagement in October.
Yes.
Thank you very much for indulgence, members. Oh, yes, yes. Okay. And any recommendations forthcoming from the members? Can we just set a due time for it? Can we say Monday at 12?
Yes,
Is it
Monday
fine?
at 12, Chair, and then I will also, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Very important, yes, member. WhatsApp is also accepted. Okay.
Personal engagement, I encourage, not a problem. Thank you. Within the boundaries, we are all grown-ups. Members, thank you so much for your indulgence. Thank you so much for our capable procedural support. Much appreciated. Honorable members, this meeting is adjourned.